That's a pretty quick.
All right, let's do the home story.
Okay.
Okay.
Please start your quick time if it's not
My
already.
quick time is at 5 minutes. Here we go. 3, 2. All right, everybody. The Elizabeth Holmes trial is coming into the end game portion, and I did an interview with a podcast about, the Theranos trial, and I realized something that could be incredibly material. And this all happened because the journalist from ABC News, who does a great job on this particular podcast, was asking me questions about, oh my God, what does this mean for Silicon Valley? And oh, Silicon Valley. And the name of the podcast is The Dropout. It's an exceptionally good podcast. So The Dropout had me on, and we did like an hour-long conversation. It got a little confrontational because she kept saying like, well, what does this mean for Silicon Valley? What does this mean? And how is Silicon Valley responsible? Like that kind of line of questioning about Theranos. Okay, fine. I understand. And I said, listen, if we look at who got duped by Elizabeth Holmes, a bunch of old generals and Henry Kissinger, who, by the way, got, I think, $500,000 in stock and $150K in cash per year to be on the board of a startup. By the way, that doesn't exist in real startup land. So she paid them off, apparently. And then a bunch of like old non-traditional investors got duped, right? Like Rupert Murdoch put $100 million in famously. Then some VC firm you never heard of, I think, put money in a late stage, a bunch of angel investors. And who else got duped by Elizabeth Holmes? Well, a bunch of Walgreens executives, apparently, according to Bad Blood, felt a lot of pressure that they were going to lose the deal, and they didn't do their diligence. Who else did Elizabeth Holmes pull the wool over their eyes? Journalists. They put her on the cover of magazines. They made her the second coming. Now, the same journalists are coming back and saying, hey, Silicon Valley failed here. And I said, excuse me for a second, how did Silicon Valley fail? He said, well, you created this crazy company and put people's lives at risk. I said, did we create that? Because the top 100 venture capital firms I know didn't put money into that. Top 500 venture capital firms did not put money into Theranos. They all laughed about it. And they talked about Tim Draper, obviously. And I said, Tim Draper's daughter was besties with Elizabeth Holmes, according to what I read. He was giving her character support, but his venture firm did not invest. He may have put a little money in personally. So anyway, the trial began in early September. It's a federal trial. So my understanding is federal trials are not broadcast, unfortunately. So we had to sit through that Rittenhouse trial, which was just horrible to watch, I'll be totally honest. Like just bad people doing bad things, stupid people doing stupid things. And then the trial I really want to watch, and that we all want to watch, is Elizabeth Holmes, who is, in all likelihood, I think, I'm going to be careful saying this, but I think that she is suffering from some mental issues around either being a pathological liar, narcissistic personality disorder, delusions of grandeur. I don't know what would lead somebody to lead what I think, based on the evidence, is one of the greatest frauds since Madoff. It's like right up there with the Madoff fraud in my mind. So anyway, it was a little cantankerous. It was a little cantankerous on the podcast there. And she's like, I thought this was going to be a friendly discussion. I was like, well, I got to stand up for the home team here in Silicon Valley because we didn't have any part in this. But one thing that came up was I asked the interviewer, did the prosecutors in the Theranos case, and I think this might be a very material thing that I stumbled upon here. I said, can I ask you a question? Because I've been reading about this and I can't find it. They talked to people who invested in Theranos. Did they talk to anybody who passed on investing in Theranos? And she said, no. I said, are you sure? She said, absolutely. We know, we've been covering this 50 episodes in, whatever. They did not. And I said, do you realize what a dereliction of duty this is on the part of the prosecutors to not get the dozens, there must be dozens of VC firms, the top VC firms in the world, must have met with Elizabeth Holmes multiple times over the years as her company got the Walgreens client and she made these crazy claims and they were on the cover of magazines. All that buzz will lead an investor to at least meet with the company. Even if they don't believe in it, you have an obligation. If a company is getting escape velocity, in other words, it's taking off and getting to a place where you don't think it's going to come back down, it's your responsibility to meet with the person. It is your responsibility to meet with the person. And they never met with the people who turned her down and asked them on the stand, hey, Andreessen Horowitz, Kleiner Perkins, Sequoia, whoever met with her. I don't know who met with her, but I'm just picking 3 top names. When you met with her, what did she say? Do you have any emails? Do you have any documents? Do you have the deck? Do you have any internal discussions that you documented about why you turned her down? And can you tell me why, in fact, did you turn her down? And they would all say the same thing, which is the back channel I got, and everybody knows, and it's a key part of the case. She is claiming that the technology, the Edison, whatever this fakaka machine that didn't really exist or work, or existed as a concept or as a mock-up, essentially, like a prototype. She wouldn't show the technology to people because she said it was proprietary. She said it was a trade secret. This flies against everything that we know here in Silicon Valley, and the press doesn't understand this. And they're spinning this and circling the wagons because they put her on the cover of these magazines, and honestly. And Elizabeth Holmes' defense gets a free pass because everybody knows in Silicon Valley is you always show everything to a venture capitalist during due diligence. You would have to. That's how it works. If you're a battery company, you go open kimono is the term for it. You open up the kimono, you get to see everything inside. Everybody does diligence and sees these things. So she tried this on the world's best venture capitalists, 100%. And in fact, Google Ventures, a famous person who was running Google Ventures, who was on the pod, producers, help me with
Bill Maris.
Bill Maris was on the pod. We'll pull up the Bill Maris quote in a moment, but he kind of said something like he laughed her out of the room or something because she wouldn't show him the tech. Okay. The prosecutors in the Elizabeth Holmes case did not put the most successful venture capitalist in the world on the stand to explain why this was so bizarre that she wouldn't let them diligence the company for money. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. I may have just stumbled upon, if she gets off, what would have been the kill shot. This would have been the absolute, there is no way to defend yourself against this. We've been covering this forever on the pod. And the prosecutors have not called additional witnesses. The government rested their case back on November 19th. And then Elizabeth Holmes took the stands for just weeks and weeks, like I think 7 days, so like 2 weeks. But VCs did not invest in this because they saw this happening. Jurors are expected to begin deliberating after closing arguments, which are December 16th to 17th. And today is the 14th, Tuesday. So on Thursday and Friday, and then the week of December 20th, I'm going to guess, I'm just going out on a limb here. I think she's guilty. I think this was premeditated. I think that she is as guilty as Bernie Madoff based on the evidence I've seen. And I have pretty good radar for this. I don't know. I'm not in the jury room. I didn't see all the evidence. So I will just tell you my guess. I'm just guessing here. I think there's a chance she gets off. I think it's like a 20% chance. I think she's so obviously guilty. But you need but one juror in our system to object, and okay, the person gets off. We know that is built into our system. We would rather have people go free who are guilty than have an innocent person go to jail. And Bill Maher said, this is the quote, "Don't talk about it. Show me the thing. Like, open up the machine. If it smells too good to be true, it's vaporware." Those are his quotes. Bill Maher was on episode 1236. Go back and watch that episode. There super talented guy.
We have a clip that we're going to play in
and we have a clip
pulling it up
that I'll play in a moment. There must be 20 other Bill Morrises out there who met with Elizabeth Holmes and had the same exact reaction. So again, who did you pull the wool over? So here we go. Bill Morris on This Week in Startups. Go.
fact driven and not BS artists.
You guys passed on Theranos. You met Elizabeth Holmes. You and I both called it. If you have the technology, you would show it. What are the lessons we can learn there, and what was it like meeting with her?
I mean, there's so many, right? That's a great example of the media just like deciding we like a story. This will be a good story because the parameters of it look nice, it look good on the cover of a magazine, but doing no research, like not actually taking the test and then taking the Quest or LabCorp test and comparing the results. That's all I did. That's all you needed to do. And
you literally asked her, "Can I see the results and compare them?" What was her response?
Through an intermediary. I didn't even take the meeting. And the answer, here are the lessons. When a startup has, in science or in life sciences, has a board full of former government officials, no one experienced in the life sciences, former generals, great people, but they know nothing about what's going on. When they've got armed guards at the entrance, literally like armed guards, when
trapped.
They won't answer any questions. Like there were all of the signs. This should not have been a surprise. And that's why there are no life science investors, because.
Yeah. So it's like so obvious to us. And these prosecutors, they may have dropped the ball royally. And I think it's a 1 in 5. Pretty good at handicapping this. I think 1 in 5 she gets off. Because, she's trying to spin this as like she had good intent and she would have succeeded at some point. She was just doing what everybody does in Silicon Valley, according to her, which is like, you fake it till you make it, or you hype it up. And the rest of us, it was completely obvious. If you don't show us the technology, you don't have the technology. Come on. We weren't born yesterday. Promising you're going to show us the technology to us next week if we invest in your company this week? Get out of here. Come on. Get out of here with that garbage. Such garbage. All right, listen. In another totally non-related story, Nike just acquired an NFT studio, pronounced Artifact. It's spelled RTFKT, but it's pronounced Artifact. The terms haven't been disclosed, but in May, the firm had raised $8 million in a seed round at a $33 million valuation from Andreessen Horowitz. They were behind the NFT project CloneX with famed Japanese artist Takashi Murakami. Am I correct?
You nailed it.
Okay. With famed Japanese artist Takashi Murakami, his most expensive piece sold for $13.5 million in 2008. You can see these different
avatars.
So here are the CloneX NFT avatars. Compared to Bored Apes and CryptoPunks look like they were made by a computer and aren't finished. They look terrible. Sorry. Bored Apes are kind of goofy, and I would say these are, pretty nice. TechCrunch called CloneX one of the most popular NFT drops the past few months. And since it dropped 3 weeks ago, the project has already seen 84 million in transaction volume, according to Crypto Tractor, Crypto Slam. I don't know if you can trust any of this, to be honest. I think a lot of this stuff is people painting the tape and flipping these things and insider trading. We've seen some evidence of that. The average CloneX NFT is selling for around 4.7 ETH in December, or $18,000 for a painting, I guess, of an individual. So if you like art and you think this is worth $18,000, there you go. I don't know if in this case you actually own. I don't know if you get to own the IP of these ones. I think that, the intellectual property, in other words, you could make it into a TV character, a comic book, or a t-shirt. But here's a chart from Yahoo Finance tracking the price and volume of CloneX NFTs over the past 2 days. And when the news of the Nike acquisition broke, volume and price both spiked. According to the TechCrunch article, Artifact has collaborated with other crypto creators to design items like physical shoes that utilize imaginary
imagery.
Artifact has collaborated with other crypto creators to design items like physical shoes that utilize imagery in other NFT projects, including CryptoComps and Bored Apes. So I think you know what's happening here. I think Nike likes to be part of the avant-garde. They like art. This is a convergence of art and commerce. And so I think what we'll see is when you buy your shoes, and we talked about this before on other episodes, the idea of pairing an NFT with your physical object is kind of interesting. It's almost like the label or the certificate that comes with it. So let's say you bought some really cool pair of sneakers, Yeezys, whatever, or whatever the Nike equivalent is, and you got the NFT with that. Well, you could kind of trade the NFT with the shoes, or maybe the shoes are kept in storage somewhere if you're a collector of these shoes, and then you have the NFT. If you trade the NFT, the shoe gets transferred to a person. I think that's actually kind of interesting. I know people in the wine space who collect wine sometimes, we're investors in Underground Cellar. People just leave their wine at Underground Cellar, or other people who are in the wine market will buy in fractionally to a wine collection, to a vintage, to cases of wine. And so if we all wanted to buy $1 million in a certain vintage, we each, put in $10,000 and 100 of us do that. We corner the market on that wine, but we don't want it, we don't want to take custodianship of it. You want somebody else to be the custodian, to be the responsible party. So I could see that happening here. And I think people will start, because there's so much money in the world and there's so many affluent people, they're not buying shoes anymore to walk places. They're buying shoes as art, as collectors, as items of status, as things that bring you joy aesthetically, just like wine brings people joy. So this is completely, I think, a legitimate purchase by Nike to do something interesting and extend their brand into this new digital world. I never really got people spending huge amounts of money on art. I do understand that it has value to some people. And I, also with the wine thing, like for me, like some crazy expensive wine, that doesn't do it for me. But, maybe a really expensive house or, expensive steak does do it for me. So I will spend money on a Kobe or a Miyazaki beef. I seem like an idiot because I spent $200 on 8 ounces of, beef when I could have bought the whole cow, or half a cow that wasn't from Japan and massaged and, fed milk and cream and whatever else to make them super fat. So very interesting purchase. And related news, earlier in December, Adidas announced a partnership with the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Adidas purchased a Bored Ape NFT and will create a character around the NFT. The NFT was purchased in September for 46 ETH, just over 156K at the time. And so, you're going to see Nike create 1,000 limited edition versions of the Jordan 1 or Air Force 1 or other legendary shoes that you're not going to get your hands on, that are too hard. Or maybe, you buy the NFTs and it gives you the ability to come to those drops they do in the physical real world. So instead of people lining up, you got to have an NFT in your wallet, and you show that in your, you take out some sort of wallet and QR code, and they scan you and you get to go into the store, right? So the stores are open 3 days a week to one group of people, 4 days a week to the public, right? And so this NFT apparel thing seems reasonable to me. I talked here about doing this with tickets. So if NFTs, because they're one of one, because they're traceable, resellable, and they have rule sets in them, that's kind of the exciting part about this. I think it's silly, ridiculous when they start trading for tons of money and there's all this painting of the tape and all kinds of shenanigans that occur. If one of my friends was advising me, should I buy these things? I would say only if you don't like money or don't care about losing money. You'd be making a crazy lottery style bet to buy these Bored Apes or crypto punks, whatever. I mean, this is a new avant-garde. I mean, this isn't like taking something like a Dali or a Picasso or a Warhol or Basquiat. Those have some decades or centuries of trading that you can look back on. In fact, Masterworks.io does that for a living. If you're buying into this cohort of NFTs, realize you're buying in the first year or two of this trend. It could just as easily be Beanie Babies. The Bored Ape Yacht Club could go down in history as like the stupidest Beanie Baby thing ever, or it could be Warhol, right? Who knows? And so buyer beware. If you're doing this, please be careful. And only invest money you can afford to lose. Nike is a massive company and they're able to make big bets. They are a $261 billion company with $44 billion in revenue and $5.7 billion in income. So this is a very big company that can make crazy bets, and they do not want to be on the other side of somebody else taking these NFTs, This is what they're thinking inside Nike when they make a purchase like this for, I'm going to guess they had to purchase it for 10 times what Andreessen paid. So I'm going to guess a $300 million purchase perhaps. And that would be something that would get the founders to sell because the founders own 60, 70% of the company. You know, if they sold it for 300 million, wow, big payday. Or maybe more, who knows? But here's the thing. Nike's looking at this and saying, hey, you have this giant company, this giant franchise. What if the Bored Ape Yacht Club decides to partner with a sneaker company like they have, right, Adidas, and start making Bored Ape Yacht Club sneakers, and those sneakers become the dope thing that people want. You just can't take that risk. And so super defensive play. So when you look at acquisitions, sometimes people are making a defensive play, and sometimes they have a thesis on how they're going to grow something 10x. As but one example, when I sold Weblogs Inc. to AOL, and they bought it for $30 million reportedly, we had only 100 or 200K in previous revenue. We had maybe 200 or 300 in contracts for future revenue. We had basically no revenue, and they paid 100 times revenue or something like that. They looked like idiots at the time, but what people didn't know was they were getting $50 per 1,000 views in revenue per page on AOL because they were sold out of cars and gadgets and consumer electronics. And we had Engadget and Autoblog and Joystick and video games. They were getting $50 to $100 for their pages. We were getting like $5 because we were just starting our sales process. So they looked at our inventory and said, we can 10x the inventory. Therefore, we're paying 1/10 of the price. So that's what you don't see sometimes as the public when these purchases happen. And they also said, we can drive 10 times as much traffic to Engadget and to Joystick and to Autoblog because we have this giant funnel of traffic. So that's when an acquisition becomes what's called accretive. It accretes, it grows some incredible value. And so should every apparel company have NFTs? Well, certainly if it's a collectible type thing, and we think that NFTs become the new bridge into a brand, that's a really good idea. I'll give you another example. There are items inside of incredibly expensive stores where I might not be able to afford the Tiffany diamond necklace, but the Tiffany charm bracelet, right? I could afford. Or I might not be able to afford at the Ford showroom, what do they call those Ford? Not the top Ford that they make every 20 years. That beautiful car. I almost bought one. It had no trunk and fit two people. It's like an incredibly beautiful car. GT, Ford GT. So there was this Ford GT, and I was like going to buy a Ford GT when I made a little bit of money after the Weblogs Inc. sale. And I saw it, and that is like a showroom object of art that brings everybody in. And then they wind up buying a Ford Taurus or a Mustang or whatever is reasonable. There are other things that work the other way around. So instead of being super expensive and drawing you in to buy something low, you can't afford to buy Chanel stuff, or you can't afford to buy an Hermes bag for $4,000, but maybe you could buy the little wallet for $500, right? So they like to have items that kind of get you started on the brand in case you become rich later and let you participate in it. So there are these items that are like the entry point for people. And I think that NFTs could be that. So if you could not afford a Bugatti, you could buy a Bugatti NFT. If you could not afford a Chanel dress, you could buy a Chanel NFT and put it on your, avatar on your Twitter page, or share it somewhere as your avatar on Instagram. And it's just a way for you to affiliate yourself with brands. So yes, I do think that these NFTs serve that purpose in the same way I explained some of those entry-level items do. Or sometimes people will just have like a Ferrari poster in their room, right? Or they'll have a Ferrari keychain. They don't have a Ferrari or Lamborghini. They just have one. If you are interested in looking at, and by the way, there's also this concept of burning NFTs, which is also kind of interesting and weird. So the idea is you burn it to unlock an asset. So imagine you bought these NFTs and it was either a sweepstakes, so 10,000 NFTs equaled a pair of, Elite Air Jordan signed by Michael Jordan himself. And, they burn all the NFTs but one and you keep it. Or you buy an NFT that lets you get one pair of shoes from Nike in the next 10 years. When you burn it, you get to pick from their collection, right? So there's all kinds of interesting things to do in the burning of NFTs, which are just different features in the smart contract. Smart contract, just a rule set that's inside of the code of the NFT. I always like
And
to
then
explain this
Jason,
because I know there's some
one
people
punch
who
up to
don't know
that.
this.
Like
Yeah.
imagine you could, there was, say they made like 1,000 Air Jordans, all signed by Michael Jordan, all in different styles with a different take on it from a different artist, right? This great collection. Then they sell the NFTs initially. And then once that NFT is burned, you get the shoes, right? The transaction's done. But before it's burned, it can transact a couple of times between different people, right? And go up in value. Now imagine Nike said, okay, and they wrote into the contract, we're going to take 10% of every single transaction after we sell the NFT, right? And these, imagine it's, you know, a 20, 30, 40, $50,000 or more. I think that's where it gets super interesting.
But you're not connecting that to a real world pair of Jordans. You're just saying,
right? Once you burn the NFT, then you get the shoes. But before you burn it, you could still trade.
All right, that's cool. I like that. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. 3, 2. All right, and then another concept that I was talking to producer Nick about was, hey, what if you bought a pair of these elite Air Jordans? Michael Jordan had signed them, whatever, and you own them. But then every time you sell that NFT and the ownership in it, Nike makes another 10%, and hey, maybe Michael Jordan makes 10%, or whoever it is, and 80% of the money, you get back. So I bought them for $1,000 and now worth 10,000. Somebody buys them for 10, I get 8. Great, I feel pretty good. I'm 80 times my money. And then Michael Jordan gets $1,000 that he doesn't need to play craps, and Nike gets $1,000 that they don't need to build a bigger headquarters or whatever it is. Then when it's burned, the shoes are delivered. So you might have something trade hands, like an antique car or a case of wine, like I explained earlier. But at the burn point is when the object is delivered. This is super interesting as a concept. It could be done today, obviously, with contracts, but legal contracts are hard work, and the lawyers and the amount of money the lawyer would have to spend would be greater than the ability to do that. What's interesting about this permissionless society and these contracts is that you can do this hopefully at a very low cost. Obviously, the gas fees on Ethereum are a disaster. Supposedly they're going to fix those, and Solana and other competitors are going to fix it. Once those gas fees get down to close to zero or very small numbers and de minimis, it could be even more interesting. So, as I've said many times on the program, store of value, not very interesting to me. Bitcoin, I get why some people are into it. If you're in some crazy country where you have runaway inflation, like 8% a month, just theoretically speaking here. I'm joking about America, obviously, but Bitcoin seems to be correlated with America and our futures. When the stocks go down, Bitcoin is correlated. So store of value, not very interesting to me. Money transfer, there's so many better ways to transfer money than crypto. Crypto's terrible at it. Third, just on like a first principles basis, like the actual core technology sucks. It's just too expensive. It's great if you're trying to do it semi-anonymously or get out of a country. So yeah, on the margins, if you were a dissident or a dictator or a terrorist, yeah, it's pretty phenomenal for money transfer. But for legal people, there's much better ways with like Venmo or, Cash App or PayPal or whatever. Third, NFTs, kind of interesting, right? I've been saying that from the beginning. There's something here. This is kind of interesting, and you got a lot of creativity going into it. But like anything else, when money's involved and anonymity, there's going to be scams. So again, beware. Just because I like NFTs doesn't mean I think you should go crazy. And then finally, DAOs. Everybody knows I got the DAO bug. I've been talking to people about it. The legal framework is still screwed. I can't do anything anywhere near the gray area because I got LPs and I don't want to go to jail and I care about my reputation, and I would never do anything as a quick money grab. I'm not saying people doing DAOs is a quick money grab or NFTs is a quick money grab. It's a quick money grab. In a lot of cases, it's a quick money grab. Like, I don't want to be associated with quick money grabs. I want to be associated with slowly making large amounts of money off of non-consensus bets. But first two, not interested in. Next two, super interested in. Here we go. Crypto in the second decade is getting very real, but be careful out there, folks. And speaking of being careful, Tether update on the Tether investigation. USDT, as you all know, is a stable coin that has faced just tons of legal and other sanctions and fines and questioning. And they seem like really shady characters who are not disclosing a lot of what they're doing. And I personally believe it is signaling to me that there is some crazy fraud going on here. Just signals. I'm not saying it is a fraud, but I'm getting fraud signals. I know how to say these things, so I don't get sued. I'm saying very significantly here, listen to the words I'm using. I'm getting signal of fraud I don't know it's a fraud. Some people are giving them fines like it's a fraud. So you can talk to the New York Attorney General if she thinks it's a fraud or if other people think it's a fraud. I am seeing massive signals of it. Yesterday, Bloomberg reported that a parallel government. Can you hear the leaf blower? Nick?
I cannot.
Charles? You can't.
I heard a little. Yeah, I did hear that little hum of that.
That's fantastic. So I guess being up on the microphone helps me with the.
Oh yeah.
Can you hear it now or when I'm okay? Seems to be going away. Why does this always happen?
Yeah, I
They
can
come.
hear that.
Well, you know what it is. They come once a week to my house and once a week to my neighbors, and my office is right off of the garden. So you hear it now, right? Toby, Zhang can hear it. Oh, I'll just talk to my noties for a second. Dusty Green is here. I did talk to Kimball Musk about his DAO. That's a cool idea, and he's doing his completely on the up and up. It's a literal nonprofit. People are donating the money and they get to vote on what they do. So that's super easy. If it's a donation, nobody's got this expectation of a return. So Kimball's DAO, absolutely brilliant. If you want to donate money to a great cause and be part of that experiment, I'm probably going to donate, 5 or 10 grand to it. And if it goes to what he's doing with his kitchens and sustainable food for people who don't have access to it, that's great by me. I've already donated to his his causes already. Kimball's obviously a good friend, and it's a cool DAO, and that's the kind of good stuff I like seeing going on. The stuff I get, and even the DAO with the Constitution, people I think might have been confused if they were buying it or not, but I don't think they expected to buy it and make money from it. They kind of saw it as the stunt / fun project. So if you look at DAOs as a donation, a GoFundMe, as an art project, you will not be disappointed. But I'm looking at DAOs as capital formation for investment for return. And so that's a much higher authority. Okay, we couldn't use any of that, but I'm just talking to the noties. Do you want me to add any of that? No, let's just go with Tether. I'll do Tether from the top, right? Sound good?
Yeah, but we have a onboarding call in 3 minutes. I asked to move it back like 30 minutes ago, but nobody's answered me. So
okay, so we'll just do it. All right.
All right.
Do you want me to try to bang this out, Tether?
No, it's 3 minutes away, so we should go. So we're on time for that.
All right.
Well,
I'll be back,
because
noties.
I can start
we'll be
editing,
back.
so it's wonderful.
We'll be back, noties. Should we leave the stream up?
No.
No. End it so Charles can
okay,
start
good.
editing. Yeah.
All right. I'll be back,
Good
noties.
time, please.
Half an hour.